Yo, yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to a brand new week and welcome to a brand new edition of what I like to call For the Birds, where I talk about different forms of negative and toxic ass behavior, the effects that behavior has on us and our mental health, and what we can do to have a better understanding of it and more control over it in order to have a better quality of our lives going forward. I want to talk to you guys today about something that is very important and also very crucial when it comes to accomplishing the things you want to accomplish and getting the points across that you are attempting to get across. And that one thing I want to talk to you guys about today is your approach. I know many of us feel very passionate and very strong about a lot of the things we believe in and a lot of the causes we're fighting for. But unfortunately, there are times where we feel so strong and passionately about those beliefs that we end up acting out in a way that does us more harm than good and ends up getting whatever message that we have lost in the process. Because while a lot of people do mean well with a lot of the issues they bring up and try to get people to pay attention to, sometimes their approach and their attitude and the way they go about expressing that just has a way of turning people off. And unfortunately, I come across people like this all the time, whether they're fighting for civil rights issues, women's rights issues, gay rights issues, animal rights issues, whatever the issue may be. They mean well by the things they're fighting for, and they mean well by the things they're speaking up on. But some of them, with their approach, their energy, their attitude, and the way they come at people about it, is not a good look. Hey, I get there are situations where, we can't be nice and we have to be aggressive with what we're trying to fight for. But there are other times where that approach just is not necessary. And by approaching things that way and approaching people that way, you're not getting them to go along with whatever cause you're fighting for. You're not getting them to actually listen to you and listen to what you have to say. In the grand scheme of things, all you're getting those people to do is make them want to get as far the fuck away from you as they can. And the more you come at people that way, and the more you approach people that way, the lonelier and miserable your life is going to be. So, what are different examples of the things people do to turn others off and to scare others away when they have a cause or something that they're fighting for? What are the different things that they do to cause this issue? Well, one of the main things they do, and admittedly, I've been guilty of this before in my life, is resorting to insults. It's one thing when somebody insults you first and talks shit to you first, and you simply just respond back to that. But it's a whole nother animal when you're actually like just trying to fight for a cause and fight for like a belief or whatever it may be, and you use insults and a condescending attitude to try to convince the person to think the way that you do. When you call somebody an idiot, when you call somebody a dumbass, and when you call somebody just a piece of shit just because they don't think the same way that you do or believe in the same causes that you do, how do you expect them to actually listen to you? And how do you expect them to actually see things from your perspective? You think anybody in their right mind wants to listen to somebody who's constantly berating them, talking down to them, insulting them, telling them they're a horrible person just because they don't think the same way that they do? You think anybody wants to hear that shit? No fucking way do they want to hear that shit. As a vegan for 11 years, I will admit, in my early years of being vegan, I would somewhat do this too. Whether I was talking to somebody online or talking to them in person, I would have many moments where I would resort to insulting the person, calling them a piece of shit, calling them an asshole, just because they weren't vegan like I was, and just because they didn't want to at least give it a chance. And hey, I don't like the fact that animals get killed just for people to eat them, and I don't like the fact that people exploit animals the way they do. But at the end of the day, I had to learn that talking to people that way and insulting people that way is not the way you are going to get them to change their mind. I'll still speak up. I still won't back down from my stance. But I don't need to resort to that kind of bullshit. And unfortunately, many people feel the need to resort to that kind of bullshit in order to get people to listen to them. Well, I have news for you. That is the worst shit that you can do if you want to get people to hear you out. Because you can have your debates, you can have your arguments, you can have your disagreements. But when you're in those scenarios and you feel the need to resort to insults, when you feel the need to resort to disrespect, and you feel the need to resort to just shitting on that other person, don't be surprised when whatever message you're trying to bring across gets lost in the process. Another way people turn others off with their approach and the way they go about things is by thinking they are always right. I've talked about this on this show before about people who constantly have the need to be right. They can't ever be wrong, and you can't ever tell them they're wrong. And I'll be honest, I said it on that episode and I'll say it again today. People like that are draining as fuck. And when you approach people with your stances and your causes with the I'm always right and you're always wrong mentality, and you never listen to what they have to say, and you're the one who always has to talk and always has to get the last motherfucking word, then in many cases, people are not going to want to hear whatever you have to say. No matter what cause you're fighting for, no matter what issue you're fighting for, when you have that approach of being always right and everybody else always being wrong and nobody else can ever correct you, then I hate to say it, but your cause you're fighting for is not going to get the attention that you think it will. Because no matter how smart you are, no matter how much you think you know, nobody gets it right every time. There's going to come one point or another where you screw up, you get the information wrong, and you just plain make a mistake. And if you can't ever be corrected on those mistakes and you can't ever be corrected on those screw ups, then you're not going to get very far in life. And you're not only going to not get very far in life, you're going to turn off a shitload of people in the process. And as time goes on, you're going to have little to no allies. Because thinking you're always right and never being able to be corrected on anything is the ultimate death nail in any kind of conversation. Even if you are right, even if your way ultimately is the right way to go, having that kind of attitude and having that kind of approach to every single conversation you have with someone, real talk, is some clown ass shit. And if you really want people to listen to you and pay attention to whatever causes you're bringing up, then you need to leave clown ass shit approaches like that at the door. Because the more you talk to people that way and the more you talk to people with that kind of attitude, the better the chances are of them rejecting you. And in many cases, rightfully so. And finally, a major way people turn others off with their approach and the way they go about things is by yelling and screaming. Yikes. If there's one thing I can't stand, one thing that just drives me crazy, is people who just constantly feel the need to yell, scream, holler, and make a scene just so other people will pay attention to them. It could be a significant other, it could be a friend, it could be a toxic family member, whoever it is. Being around people like that and being in a position where you have to listen to people like that is not a fun way to spend your day. It's not fun to be in the presence of people like that. And chances are the people who are like that probably don't have fun being around themselves either. And look, I'm not saying that there isn't a time and place for yelling and screaming, but that shit should be an absolute last resort. But if you feel the need in every single last conversation you have about an issue or a stance you're fighting for to yell, scream, and holler at the other person nonstop, then it is clear to see that you are one horrible ass communicator. I'm sure many of our parents, when we were kids, taught us that yelling, screaming, and whining and throwing a tantrum is not the way to get what you want. But sadly, many people forgot that lesson when they were kids and took that kind of behavior into their adult life. And even if they legit have an issue that they have the right to be upset about, and even if they legit bring up something that legit should be paid more attention to, but behaving that way and approaching it that way is fucking childish. You can excuse it all you want, you can sugarcoat it all you want, but at the end of the day, that approach of yelling, screaming, and throwing a fit just to get other people to hear you out is something a child would do. Not a grown adult, not a grown man, not a grown woman, but a fucking child. And I mean it when I say this. That shit, that resorting to yelling and screaming shit when you don't know any other forms of healthy communication, that shit is for the birds. And until you learn to calm the fuck down when you bring up these issues, then whatever cause you're trying to fight for will more than likely fall on deaf ears. And now that I've talked about the different ways people's approach can turn others off and make them not want to listen to them, what are other more healthy ways of communicating that people can use in order to get others to listen to whatever cause or whatever issue they're trying to bring up? What are different forms of healthy communication they could use for this? Well, one of the forms of healthy communication they could use, and it's a fucking major one, is being calm. As I said a few minutes ago, I know there are certain situations where we have to be aggressive, where we have to be in your face, and we have to raise some hell. But there are many others where that approach just is not going to get you very far. And instead of getting people to want to listen to you and maybe hear you out, all they're going to want to do is ignore you. The reason why they're going to ignore you is because you're too damn hostile. But if you take more of a calm approach and more of a relaxed approach when you come at people with this shit, then 9 times out of 10, they'll at least want to hear you out. I'm not saying they'll agree with you. I'm not saying they'll 100% see it your way. But coming at them with that approach will better your chances of at least getting your point across. And tying into the vegan point I made a few minutes ago, I've learned as I've gotten older, the way that I've been able to get people to become vegan or at least give veganism a chance is by being calm with the way that I talk to them about it. I don't call them animal killers. I don't call them pieces of shit. I don't call them carnist or whatever other derogatory word you can think of. I simply just have a conversation with them. I don't insult them. I don't talk shit to them. I may not agree with their lifestyle. I may not agree with the fact that they eat dead animals, but I at least have a peaceful conversation. And I've learned from that peaceful approach and calm approach that people will more than likely be willing to listen to you if you come at them that way. And in some cases, they may even say, hey, you were right. Your way's the right way. I'm going to do it this way from now on. I'm going to think this way from now on. I'm going to go down this path from now on. And the reason why is because you came at them the right way. Because people underestimate how important your approach is. People like to talk about how you shouldn't miss the message because you don't like the messenger or you don't like the way the messenger goes about things. Look, I get it. There are issues that, while we might not like the person who may be bringing them up, we should pay attention to. But that does not excuse the way the messenger goes about bringing the message. If the messenger goes about bringing the message in a hostile, disrespectful way, then of course people are going to ignore it. Of course people aren't going to want to listen to it. And of course they're going to tell that person to go fuck themselves. But if you take a different approach and take an approach that's about conversation as opposed to confrontation, then you'll be surprised at how much progress you can make. But it's always important when you're coming at people, when you're talking to people, when you're trying to express yourself, that unless you have no other choice but to raise hell and you have no other choice but to be in somebody's face, always remain calm. And another better form of communication people can use to get others to listen to them and get people to hear what they have to say when they're bringing up important issues is by also being willing to listen to them too. My best friend told me years ago that God gave you one mouth and he gave you two ears for a reason, which means that you should listen twice as much as you speak. Any conversation where you're always talking over the other person and not letting them even get one word out is not a conversation that is going to go anywhere. In order to have a healthy conversation, in order to have a conversation that actually reaches a solution, you have to be willing to listen. I'm not saying you have to agree with them. I'm not saying you have to see things their way, but you have to at least listen before you respond. And sadly, some people, they just can't or simply just refuse to listen. They always have to talk. They always have to speak. They always have to get every single last word in, and nobody else can ever say shit back. But if you're someone who can see the error of that way of approaching things and actually listen to the people you disagree with before you talk back, then maybe you'll start to get more of your ideas and more of your issues across. The worst thing you can do in any conversation is constantly cut off the other person. When they've barely gotten two or three words in, you cut them off to make your point or tell them that they're wrong or tell them that they're a piece of shit or whatever it is. If you're ever in a conversation like this and you constantly do that, stop that shit. Because if you want people to listen to you and if you want people to hear you out, you have to be willing to hear them out too. Because a healthy conversation requires two people to get their points across and two people to speak their piece. So, yes, get your point across and say what you have to say, but also don't forget to listen. Because the more you're willing to listen to others, chances are they'll be more than willing to listen to you. And finally, a healthy way to go about getting people to listen to what you have to say and listen to whatever issues you're bringing across is by simply relating to them. It's easy to insult people, talk shit to people, and think that you're better than them just because you think one way and they think another way. But as I've learned throughout my life, easy does not always mean better. And as challenging as it may be, and as hard as it may be, it is very important to be able to relate to other people, even if you disagree with them. If you really want people to listen to you, if you really want people to get down with the cause that you're down with, you have to have the ability to relate to them. You have to be able to talk to them in a way that they'll understand, and you also have to be able to identify with them on the issues they go through in their everyday life. Because no matter how different you may think you are from them, there are certain things, and when you get to talk to them and get to know them, where you'll realize that maybe you guys aren't so different. And that's one thing I've learned throughout my life. The way that I've been able to get people to listen to me the most and connect with me the most is by relating to them. Whether it's their upbringing, whether it's their family situation, their relationship situation, their career situation, whatever it is, you have to be able to relate to others if you want them to relate to you. And relating to other people is a beautiful thing. I like the fact that I can connect with other people with whatever issues they went through in their past, whether good or bad, and being able to talk about those things with them and being able to help each other in the process. It's a great thing. I'm telling you, it is great. But some people, unfortunately, don't have that ability to relate to other people. They can only think the way that they think, they can only do things the way that they do things. And as a result, they end up living a lonely life. And that's not what I want for you, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want you to have whatever causes you're fighting for or whatever issues you're fighting for to fall on deaf ears just because you can't relate to the people you're talking to. The more you're able to relate to others, the more you're able to identify with others and the issues they go through, the bigger audience you are going to build, the bigger following you are going to have, and the better chance you are going to have at getting the points across that you need to get across. But no matter how strongly you feel about something, no matter how passionately you feel about something, always remember that the world does not revolve around you. There are other people in this world, going through issues, going through struggles, going through hard times. And by being able to relate to them, connect with them, and identify with them, you show them that they're not alone in their struggles. And in return, they'll show you that you're not alone either. So make sure you're able to relate to people, connect with people, and identify with people, because if you can, that is one valuable lesson and one valuable skill that you just can't learn in a classroom. So, my final thoughts on this whole topic are this. Unfortunately, in the world we live in, there is a lot of injustice, there is a lot of inequality, and there's just a lot of things that go on in it that are just plain wrong. And it is important to speak out against those things, fight back against those things, and if possible, put a stop to those things. Yes, there is a time to be aggressive. Yes, there is a time to fight back. And yes, there is a time when you can't be nice. But that doesn't mean that you take that approach and use that approach for every single last issue. It doesn't matter if you're right. It doesn't matter if you're wrong. If you constantly come at people with an asshole, condescending, disrespectful approach to the things you're trying to get across and the things you're trying to get them to listen to, then instead of people hating whatever you're trying to fight against and hating whatever issue you're trying to bring up, your approach and your attitude is only going to make people hate you. Because no matter what they say on social media, no matter what your little clique of friends tell you and all that, your approach fucking matters. I've come across many people throughout these last few years who've granted brought up legit issues and legit problems that need to be resolved, but because of their attitude, because of their approach, and because of their behavior, it just made me dislike them in many ways more than I disliked whatever issue they were bringing up. I hate to say it, but it has happened a few times. It's not to say the issues they were bringing up weren't important and weren't worth looking into, but just that person's energy and that person's whole vibe just made me think that they were an asshole more than I thought that the issue they were bringing up was a serious one. Because people like Kanye West being one example, and also Amanda Seales being another example, they bring up legit issues. They bring up legit problems that should be spoken about and that should be given more attention to. But their energy, their vibe just makes me say, damn, these people are assholes. And the more people you come at that way and the more people you attack that way, the more people you are going to have as adversaries as opposed to allies. But if you come at people more calmly while also still bringing attention to the issue that you're bringing up, and also focus on more having a conversation than a confrontation, and while it may not be easy sometimes doing your best to relate to the people you're talking to, then the chances of them seeing things your way are 10 times higher. So that's why I say be mindful of your approach, be mindful of your attitude, be mindful of your behavior and your energy, because all of that, when it comes to bringing up important issues and important things in our society, will make the difference, whether it's fair or unfair, between people listening to you and people choosing to ignore you. Well, that's all the time I have for you guys today here on For the Birds. And like I've said before, I'm not a licensed doctor or a therapist, but I do have a lot of experience in my personal life in dealing with these issues. So I like to use this podcast as a platform in helping others in dealing with them a lot easier than I did. And if you ever want to talk to me or connect with me in any way, you can follow me on my various social media sites, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. For Instagram, you could look up Conscious Kurt. Also for Facebook and LinkedIn, you could look up my first and last name, Kurt Cadet. Send me a message, friend request. I would love to chop it up with you in any way. And also, if you ever want to listen to this and other past episodes of the podcast, you can find it on Spotify, Spreaker, or YouTube. Like it, subscribe to it, leave comments under the episodes, and let me know what you think. Send me suggestions on what I could maybe talk about on future episodes. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show one of these days, I would love to have you on as well. But regardless, I will be here for a long time to come talking about different forms of negative and toxic ass behavior, the effects that behavior has on us and our mental health, and what we can do to have a better understanding of it and more control over it in order to have a better quality of our lives going forward. And until next time, this is Conscious Kurt with another edition of For the Birds. Take care, enjoy the rest of your week, and remember, don't be an asshole in real life or social media, because that shit is for the birds. Have a good one, guys.